A candle is born with the debt of light on its head. Its destiny's verse has a clear and straight thread, like the bloodline of Beetlejuice going down Mastani's throat. The blueprint of a plant drawn for the root-consuming flame, this be the finest hour of a sage, the farewell of the flame to each moment of melting. Space-time's blame heaps as do leaves in the fall. But I happen to know another kind of candle as well, that, touched by the hand of a flame, withdraws into its shell like a snail. Again and again, like a circus trapeze act, the flame and I swing forward to meet and sway back, but I do not dare to leap and catch the flame. Arun Kolatkar, one of India's foremost contemporary poets, writes in Marathi and English. A multifaceted artist, equally in love with painting, music, and poetry. Kolatkar once said, "I am primarily a poet." But when you look at his work, it becomes clear that there is a unique synergy that glows in it. The amazing fusion of song and visual imagination with colloquial speech. Arun Kolatkar is a very private person, and still his roots reaching for the whole earth, exploring mankind's inner resources, empathizing with human beings across landscape and history. This is the gift and the inheritance of Marathi Bhakti poetry and the open-ended ethos of the many traditions that coexist in India. Arun Kolatkar has shaped Indian poetry in the tradition of Kabir, Tukaram, and Ghalib.
He'd draw heads, faces, eyes, figures of teachers, classmates. Superb work done with a plain pencil in an ordinary notebook. I'd kept that notebook with me for years. Then maybe it got lost when we moved house.
Arun was one of the first Marathi poets to get the rest of the world involved in what he was doing. Those who have read Arun's Marathi poetry are frequently not at all aware that he has a body of English, poetry in English. And those of us who are aware of his, very much aware of his English poetry, haven't taken much notice of his Marathi poetry. Fortunately, I am not in that predicament. I am equally at home in the two languages and in Arun's poetic accomplishments in both the languages. I said both the languages, but it is a single poetic accomplishment. That is something that I have to stress. No, it is not as if Arun writes Marathi English or Arun writes anglicized Marathi, not at all. He writes English, he writes Marathi. He is a very good example of what we in linguistics call coordinate or parallel bilingualism.
He lived at Shivaji Park, and all of us met there once a week. We got records from the British Council, jazz, pop music, plays. Once we got Dylan Thomas's radio play, Under Milkwood. It blew our minds. A play for voices. What just voices could create. Amazing. We used to read our own work to one another. I think I first met Arun in 1954-55 in Pune in the house of my nephew and Arun's classmate, Madhav Bhagwat.
I met Arun and Babu Rao when I joined their class around 1945-46, before independence. We became close friends. Arun and Babu Rao were then the followers of Gandhi and the Congress. And I, at that time, was for the RSS. So we had animated arguments. As for painting, frankly, that wasn't my cup of tea. But Arun and Babu Rao went out regularly to do landscapes. As for writing, yes, I wrote a little. They wrote a lot. Reduced to beggary by Mumbai, ate a piece of jaggery at Kalyan in a village that had no name but had a waterfall, sold one blanket and had a fill of water, chewing people leaves, came up to Nashik, sold tukaram there, and ate khima pav on top.
शिकवायला बसले इथे बसणे शिक असलं पण कसं वागावं काय घ्यावं काय सोडावं वाचनामध्ये देखील कोणतं पुस्तक वाचावं कोणतं वाचू नये इथून ते
He taught me what to read and what to ignore, what to remember, what to forget, what to take and what to leave. The message was, crystallize your thoughts before you speak.
की सगळ्या गोष्टी सारख्या नसतात हे स्वतःकरता आपण ठरवायचं लोकांना सांगण्याकरता सगळं सारखं आहे सगळं उत्तम आहे आणि हा जो काही त्यांचा आस्पेक्ट आहे
He impressed many things on me, influenced me by example. I learned from him that all things were not equal, not the same. They are different. Note the difference. But don't talk about it until you've made up your mind.
Jezuri would be one of the first four, and it was also very clear that Arun's contribution, and a great contribution to Clearinghouse, would be in designing the books and designing the covers. Now I said that I got to know Arun's poems before I got to know him, but I don't know to what extent I have got to know him, despite our meeting regularly, almost every week for the last 2 years or so.
Yashwant Rao, are you looking for a God? I know a good one. His name is Yashwant Rao, and he is one of the best. Look him up when you are in Jezuri next. Of course, he is only a second-class God, and his place is just outside the main temple, outside even of the outer wall, as if he belonged among the tradesmen and the lepers. I have known gods prettier faced or straighter laced, gods who soak you for your gold, gods who soak you for your soul, gods who make you walk on a bed of burning coal, gods who put a child inside your wife or a knife inside your enemy, gods who tell you how to live your life, double your money or triple your land holdings, gods who can barely suppress a smile as you crawl a mile for them, gods who will see you drown if you won't buy them a new crown. And although I'm sure they are all to be praised, they are either too symmetrical or too theatrical for my taste. Yashwantrao, mass of basalt, bright as any post box, the shape of protoplasm, or a king-size lava pie thrown against the wall, without an arm, a leg, or even a single head. Yashwantrao, he is the god you got to meet. If you are short of a limb, Yashwantrao will lend you a hand and get you back on your feet. Yashwantrao does nothing spectacular. He doesn't promise you the earth or book your seat on the next rocket to heaven. But if any bones are broken, you know he will mend them. He will make you whole in your body and hope your spirit will look after itself. He is merely a kind of a bone setter. The only thing is, as he himself has no heads, hands and feet, he happens to understand you a little better.
We went to Jezuri, Arun, Manohar Oak and I. We took a state transport bus there, as described in the poem. We met people, local guides, priests. Arun listened to each of them and did what they told a pilgrim to do. Perform a puja, feast on Puran Polis after visiting the main temple, meet the male ballad singers and the female dancers who sing the god stories, and heard folklore and legends like Yashwantrao, whom the lame and the crippled offer wooden hands and legs, hoping to overcome disabilities. He went into each item, every detail.
वाघ्या मुरळीचा कार्यक्रम पाहिजे म्हणते वाघ्या मुरळी सगळे आले तिथं मी तिथलं केला नाही असं एक आयटम नाही त्यामुळे प्रत्येक तिथला गाईड येऊन तिथले सगळ्या स्टोरीज प्रत्येक स्पॉटच्या ते नालाची खून ते हात वगैरे तो जे दान पाय द्यायचे वगैरे तो यशवंतराव मग ते कडे पठार हे सगळे एक एक डिटेलमध्ये सगळ्या गोष्टी त्यांनी त्यावेळी केलेल्या होत्या.
I frankly feel that Arun is a kind of a hunter, a predator, a shikari. He is what you call a watcher. He would spend days, months, even years going after his prey. He would observe them endlessly, talk to them, understand, and get even inside of them, until he finally took a crack and split the code wide open. I think it was sometime in the 70s that Arun was, I think, passionately involved in music. One didn't know about this aspect of his work, to such an extent that he even went to a person called Arjun Shezwal and took tuitions from him. And one day I asked him, I said, Arun, what makes you sort of, why do you want to learn Pakhavaj? What is the objective of behind this? And he said very simply that I want to write music, and to understand the rhythm, I've got to know the tal and whatever he said. But a person who goes to the extent of learning music, especially Pakhavaj, which is very hard to handle, was something I just couldn't imagine.
Let all the filth be drained out of your eyes. All galaxies, sewages, donkeys, celestial cities, vultures, deities, demons, Hindus, Muslims, circumcised and uncircumcised penises, miscellanies, the yakshas, the kinnaras, the gandharvas, the rakshasas, the devas, the daityas, the asuras, the samandhas, the munjas, the vetas, the plumbers and the electricians, the 11 rudras, 14 manus and the 28 vyasas, the 88,000 urdhvaretas, the 36,333 devas drinking moonlight, heavens, hells, messiahs, mice, courtesans, astral arenas, black bees worth 125 grand, pimps worth 150 grand, and grain parchers worth 900 grand, civil wars, fraternal fights, Mahabharatas, crusades, jihads, cities hurting. Hanuman Chalisa, AK Satya Chalisa, the omni-ranged 12 pricked, target-seeking bombs of here and cosmic missiles. Genghis Khan, Timurlane, Nadir Shah raising heaps of skulls, Afzal Khans inseminating their 63 wives, concentration camps of here, mass graves, corpse crops, gas chambers, massacres of here, sarpasatras, final solutions, ethnic cleansings, riots, genocides, de-kshatriyizing the earth 21 times or de-Judaizing, de-canonizing, de-Hutuizing, de-Tutsiizing, de-Buddhaizing, de-idolatorizing, de-Incaizing, de-Aztecizing, de-Red Indianizing, de-Hinduizing, de-Muslimizing it, those Parshuramas washing off their hands in the holy water of pure hatred, the religions, the castes, the subcastes that belong here, the mental wounds and egos that continue to bleed age after age, growing gangrenous, the Badwe, the Mullahs, the Gurus, the Padres, the Shankaracharyas, the rabbis, the lamas, the popes, the khalifas, the mob rules, the herd rules, the rod rules, the bash rules that rule here, the Caesars here, the Chakravartis here, the Fueras here, the Ashwathamas and the Eichmanns, the trembling Indras here, the Sahasrarjunas here, grabbing bribe with 1,000 arms, the 11-headed equivocating Avalokiteshwaras here, and poets whose trunks curve to the right. When all this filth flows out of your eyes, then only a pure drop of tear, just the one, will remain in the end. Save it in the eye. It will be the useful one to create afresh the universe. O cosmic mother.
I wanted some poems. I think, yeah, and he gave me the boat ride, which turned out to be his first long poem.
The long hooked poles know the nooks and crannies, find flaws in stonework, or grappling with granite, ignite a flutter of unexpected pigeons, and the boat is jockeyed away from the landing. After a pair of knees has shot up and streaked down the mast, after the confusion of hands about the rigging, an off-white miracle, the sail spreads.
This is an amazing characteristic of Arun's poetry, in English at least. Their rich complexity and their accessibility, and to all ages. A nice yajna this, not a single sacrificial post in sight, no ropes, no knives. There's no need for the queen or anybody else to lead the animal to the killing field and take its life by smothering it, bludgeoning it, or worse. No need to carve up the parts, omentum, liver, lung, bladder, genitals, and cook them separately, or to roast the victim's still bleeding heart on a spit. Oh no, nothing of that sort. Nothing crude. It's all sorcery. Mantras do it all. Snakes from near and far, large and small, come floating, writhing through the air, dragged by spells, as if caught in an invisible lasso, and threw themselves into the fire. The more you feed it, the hungrier it seems to get, and the higher it blazes.
Kala Ghoda, the black horse, named after a colonial equestrian statue since removed, was a landmark in South Mumbai. The square, now a circle, is still called Kala Ghoda. For 5 decades, Arun Kolatkar met his friends here at a restaurant called the Wayside Inn, now no longer there. Surrounded by museums, art galleries, libraries, cultural centers, and heritage buildings, Kala Ghoda has a European ambiance, but its street life is its uniquely Indian underside. Kolatkar's latest collection is called Kala Ghoda Poems.
Words for a cellist. The music class is over. His fiddler friends have gone their separate ways with all their fiddles and fiddlesticks, leaving him alone with his awkward burden beside him on the sidewalk in front of Maximula Bhavan, with no taxi in sight, clenching and unclenching his hands, cursing Purcell, Boccherini, Beethoven, watching the Beggar's Banquet, and letting the Philharmonic Gulmohar speckle him and the cello lying at his feet. In its contoured coffin, like a stillborn elephant with leaves that keep falling like yellow and slightly elongated minims, in a deciduous symphony.
Having come to Pandhari, even if you can't do anything else, don't you forget to buy a blanket for yourself. Buy a white one from Kolar or a dark one from Sangola. But do buy a blanket, a good one for yourself. One warm leg around you is better than 2 blankets, say young broads flush with youthful insolence. But when your youth's over, when your breasts shrivel, hair turn white, nobody's going to visit you no more. Nobody will. But this blanket will never let you alone out in the cold. Come rain, come wind, come winter's chill. Honey, this one will keep you company for keeps. Just feel this blanket once with your hand. This blanket from Zauli is such a kind comfort. Don't call it a blanket. It's the shade of Vithai. It's not the sort of thing people queue up to see. It's a mighty useful thing that will remain forever with you. There's no shop here quite like ours. Even Tuka bought his blanket here once upon a time.